As punk rock slipped further into commercialization, or was transforming into a hybrid genre of other styles, part pop, part punk, part electronic, and part fashion, this new music was promoted by the big record company executives. The new music delivery format that would change the music business forever was launched in 1981. It was called MTV for music television, and the very first video aired was Radio Killed the Video Star by the Buggles. Be sure and watch this video in this week's box. The idea of a channel devoted entirely to music videos had been bouncing around throughout the late 70s. In fact, one of the main influences to what would become MTV was a show called Pop Clips, which was partially conceived by former Monkey band member Mike Nesmith. The irony of the corporate connection between the Monkees and MTV cannot be ignored here. The Monkees are the most famous early band to be completely created by music executives and committees, and designed specifically for television. MTV's objective was to commercialize the new wave of music and generate a huge advertising demographic, teens and young adult TV viewers. Both the creators of the Monkees and MTV saw the power of the television as a medium for a largely ignored young demographic. I was a recent graduate from high school in the summer of 1981, and I clearly remember gathering around our friend's TV to watch the first video and the launch of this channel. We did not all have cable television at the time, so we met at our friend's home who did have cable TV. We were mesmerized. In retrospect, the Buggles video is poorly shot, silly, grainy, and the song would probably have faded into obscurity if it were not for MTV. But we were hooked. The young generation being courted by this new TV format was the first to embrace a small screen in large numbers. This was the first video game generation, so the channel of music videos was a genius idea. Just like in the early days of rock, when Elvis Presley's and the Beatles' management understood the power of the small screen and booked them on the Ed Sullivan Show, MTV reignited a young audience that had been largely ignored on traditional TV formats. This music video format added a new level of complexity to the rock and pop stars. Now they not only had to sound great, they had to look great on a TV screen. As some aspects of punk rock faded and leading bands broke up or changed to a more commercial sound, record executives recognized and named a hybrid style of rock music the new wave of music. This genre is vast, with many bands fitting it completely and others having only select songs that would fit this category. One of the dominating musical elements to new wave is the synthesized keyboard. Although evidence can be found as far back as the late 19th century of what would become synthesizer technology, the invention of the modular, portable synthesizer can be traced to the late 1950s and early 1960s by Robert Moog and Harold Bode. A simple definition of a synthesizer is an electronic instrument that can simulate or imitate other sounds. In this week's discussion forum, you will be researching and discussing your findings on the evolution of the synthesizer. Almost no other instrument has altered music technology in the latter 20th century as much as the synthesizer has. As synthesizer keyboards evolved, they became much less expensive and capable of a wider range of sounds. New wave music is heavily dominated by electronic keyboards and synthesizers, so much so that sometimes an electric guitar, the main instrument of rock, cannot be found. Even in the video for Radio Killed the Video Star, only an electric bass guitar can be seen near the end of the video. Along with the sound of the new wave, many bands sported unusual fashion, hairstyles, and overall images. This edginess was partially inherited from the styles of punk rock's early pioneers. One band in the new wave category was Oingo Boingo, who combined a quirky image and sound with ska influences and electronics. They disbanded in 1995, but their music dominated MTV, movies, and radio airwaves for most of the 1980s. Their lead singer, Danny Elfman, has gone on to be one of Hollywood's leading film composers, and he often collaborates with film director-creator Tim Burton. It has been difficult for rock musicians to break into the world of film composing. It is a very small and elite group of composers, and those in the group would often view rock and pop music with disdain. Even with successes like Batman and Spider-Man, Elfman was looked down upon by some fellow members and the composers of the film group due to his rock roots. In a later lecture, another rock-based composer will be discussed. Fortunately, the exclusive world of film composing has been consistently changing over the past 20+ years, with more rock and popular musicians entering the field. The artist who completely immersed himself in the music video format and ultimately changed it forever was Michael Jackson. Jackson began his solo career in the 1970s, and with his album Off the Wall, which was released in 1979, he quickly led the pop charts with album after album and earned the title the King of Pop. Jackson met legendary musician, producer, and music mogul Quincy Jones while playing the role of the Scarecrow in the 1970s film version of The Wiz. Jackson knew the video format was a highly creative goldmine, and he collaborated with award-winning Hollywood film directors to change the sophistication of the music video forever. Be sure and watch Jackson's video for Thriller, which is contained in this week's box. The video for Thriller upped the ante for all videos to come. It was much longer, used Hollywood-style story concepts, and professional filming, costuming, choreography, and staging. The days of simply filming a band with a handheld video camera were over. After Jackson's Thriller video, bands and artists that did not improve their video quality and concepts were quickly ignored. Another element that Jackson's Thriller video provided was to further integrate audiences of music videos. Although many strides had been made against racism in rock, MTV seemed to be stuck in the 1950s. Some artists, such as Donna Summer, Tina Turner, and Eddie Grant, had aired videos on MTV, but they did not get heavy rotation and were thought to be watched mostly by African American viewers. Jackson's Billie Jean is considered by many as the first African American music video on MTV's heavy rotation. Later, when Jackson's Thriller video was released, with its 13-minute and 43-second epic Hollywood style, it measured more integrated viewers than any other video. It also blends the racial genres by including a pop metal solo played by guitarist Eddie Van Halen. Pop or glam metal fit perfectly in the new music video format, with its strong emphasis on image, girls, glitz, and glam. Los Angeles was the epicenter for this offshoot of heavy metal. Many bands in this genre offered a less blues-oriented sound and had songs that were more pop-oriented and in a polished style. Pasadena-based Van Halen led the charts for this genre with their trademark virtuosic style and series of flamboyant frontmen. Brothers Eddie and Alex Van Halen donned less of the glam fashion than other LA-based bands, but the very visible and extroverted original lead singer, David Lee Roth, radiated the glam image. His high-pitched vocals, outrageous costumes, stage strutting, and charismatic TV presence helped make the Van Halen videos some of the more comical and watched videos of the 1980s. Van Halen has had some very public disputes with their various frontmen. Original lead singer until the mid-1980s, David Lee Roth, left, citing Eddie's behavior as one of the issues. He has recently reunited as the frontman for the band yet again. Sammy Hagar, who sang lead from 1985 to 1996, and again from 2003 to 2005, also cites Eddie's behavior for his reasons for leaving. Hagar also included some rather scathing descriptions of his last years with the band in his recent autobiography. Excerpts of his account of Eddie's drug and emotional issues were published in an issue of Rolling Stone magazine in 2010. For a brief 3 years, from 1996 to 1999, former Extreme Band co-founder Gary Cherone sang lead for Van Halen. Cherone left citing creative differences. Despite the band's revolving door of lead singers, they remain one of the best-selling pop metal bands of any heavy metal genre. Along with the massive impact of music videos to rock music, technology advances, like the mass production of the compact disc in 1982, revolutionized all aspects of music. The change from an analog music process, tapes and vinyl records, to a digital process, CDs, MP3s, has changed music forever. Also in this week's discussion forum, we will be discussing the pros and cons of these two processes. This will require some outside research. Come prepared with some knowledgeable contributions to this discussion. The debate as to whether digital or analog processes are superior still continues, and most likely will for some time. The 1980s saw a resurrection of purpose-driven rock and roll. This is not to say that artists were not interested in global issues in the 1970s, but 80s artists joined through a variety of massive concerts and recordings to assist a wide range of political and social issues. One of the most successful, and at the time most watched satellite broadcasts of all time was Live Aid. Proceeds from this huge concert event went to aid for African countries that were experiencing one of the worst famines after a lengthy drought in the history of their continent. Much like the artists at the 1967 Monterey Pop Festival who captured national audiences, many bands at Live Aid obtained international audiences for the first time. The Irish band U2 was one of the bands who caught many people's attention at the Live Aid concert. Their lead singer Bono broke convention and at one point jumped off the stage to confront a fan that was being crushed by the crowd. A video of this part of the concert is contained in this week's box. The band members thought Bono's stunt had ruined their chances to impress the world, but just the opposite occurred. U2's early songs often reflect the violence of their homeland, Ireland. Their song, Sunday, Bloody Sunday, expresses in part some of the violence in Ireland, while also standing as an anthem for all violence past and present. U2 have earned more Grammy Awards than any other band, and remain one of the most commercially successful and highest-grossing tour bands of all rock and roll.